In 2008, an Italian company was caught up in a major scandal when it was discovered that the extra virgin oil that they were selling was really anything but. This company was known as Oil Co. and was found all across the world, but it wasn't until an anonymous tip led investigators to test this oil that they found that it was significantly diluted with cheaper oils like sunflower and canola oil. This outraged the industry, but unfortunately, this is only one of many stories in the last decade. Now, olive oil has huge benefits, but only if you're getting the high quality and authentic olive oil. So in this video, I want to show you the criteria that you need to look for when you're buying olive oil to make sure it's not only authentic, but at a high quality. And make sure you stick to the end to find out how you can test this at home to ensure that you are getting a good quality olive oil, as well as the best way to use your olive oil in your day-to-day. Let's begin. Hello and welcome back to the channel. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Steven, and this video we're going to be looking at olive oil. This is something that I have got a lot more into more recently. I now have this every single day because it has huge health benefits, but you have to make sure you're getting the right one. And there are a few criteria that you can look for to make sure you are. I'll go through what the most important ones are. And if you really want to get the highest possible grade, then I'll go through those ones as well. The cost of a reasonable extra virgin olive oil is around £5. So you don't have to spend huge amounts of money, but the more you spend, the better quality it's going to be. Now, for us to understand this, it's much easier to just understand firstly the extraction process. So firstly, where does the olives come from? They tend to be grown, or the happiest at least, to be grown in a warm subtropical climate. So that's why almost half of our olives for olive oil come from Spain, and we also get them from countries like Italy and Greece. Now, as soon as they are harvested, they have to be processed very quickly. Now, there are generally 3 stages to this. The first one is it has to be pressed / grinded. This is often by stone, and to make a paste. It's then put through a centrifuge to separate the oil from the liquid, and then that oil is filtered to then pretty much produce the olive oil that we will then get. Now, you notice that this was purely mechanical, and provided it's purely mechanical, this is when we can call it virgin. This is what virgin means in virgin olive oil, is that it hasn't gone through any heated processes or chemical processes, and is only mechanical. Now, what the extra portion of it means, or extra virgin olive oil, is that it just has to meet a higher criteria. And this criteria is that the oil that they use has to be from the first pressing of that process. It has to have an acidity level of less than 0.8%, and the less, the better quality the oil is going to be. It has to go through a higher quality of testing, and is not allowed to be heated above 27 degrees Celsius or 80 degrees Fahrenheit. If you're buying olive oil that just says olive oil or refined olive oil, then it's almost certainly gone through high heat processes and chemical processes, which unfortunately remove a lot of the good stuff in olive oil, and really the reason why we want to buy it in the first place. Now, as I mentioned, extra virgin olive oil in Aldi, which is one I've got here, costs around £5, and this bottle is 750 milliliters. I think that's reasonably reasonable because it does last quite a while. Now, yes, you can go much higher than this. The one I've currently got now is this one here, which is an organic extra virgin olive oil, and it comes straight from Italy. It's a single origin. This is much more expensive at £18, and I'm going to explain why and the benefits you get from this one as opposed to this one, or even worse if you're just going to get a refined olive oil. But however, before I go through these, I just want to mention that this one I don't think is too bad from at least what I can see. So the first criteria that you absolutely want to look for, and I don't think you want to go any less than this, is the extra virgin olive oil, because as I mentioned, this is only £5. So to get any less than this, you're only saving a couple of pounds, and the benefits you get from extra virgin are just so much greater, and mainly because it meets a high criteria and it's only a mechanical process, so it hasn't gone under heat, which means that you're going to get all of the good stuff from it. Now ideally you also want to see cold pressed on it, but extra virgin, the virgin part means that it can't be heated above 27 degrees, which means that it hasn't been heated, which is the same thing when they say cold press. So cold pressed extra virgin olive oil is the starting point. Now you'll notice that this is in a darkish bottle. This is really important because olive oil easily oxidizes. It's very sensitive to oxidizing in light. This is why it has to be kept in either a dark bottle, and ideally one that stops the UV light from going in, or even better, which you'll see on this one, it's in an opaque bottle. So there's absolutely no light that can go in this. And what you can also do, particularly if you still have a glass bottle, is that you can put it then in the cupboard just so there's less light that's going to get to it. If it oxidizes too much, the olive oil will start to go rancid and start to go bad. You'll lose a lot of the health benefits and it's just not going to taste as good. They are probably the two most important things to look for. Extra virgin olive oil in a dark or ideally opaque bottle. If you've got those two things, you're definitely off to a very good start. Now, the next thing I would look for is to look, ideally you want to see a harvest date or a press date. This will tell you when the olives were either harvested or when the process started. This will generally be very similar dates. And the reason why is because olive oil doesn't last forever. And as soon as the olive oil has been bottled, the clock starts to when it's going to go bad or go rancid. Now, there's lots of things they can do to slow that process down. One of them is putting it in an opaque bottle. But the olive oil will tend to last, even at best, between 18 to maximum of 24 months. So ideally, to get the best and freshest olive oil, you want to get it from its latest harvest. The harvest is normally between October and February, so you want it as close to that harvest as possible to be getting the best one, but also to make sure that it lasts, particularly if you're not going to use it really quickly. Once it is open though, you ideally want to use it in the first couple of months. Now the next thing I think I'll look for is single origin. This comes from one place in Italy. It's not mixed, it's not blended. I think in the same reason why single origin coffee tends to taste better than blended roasts. The same thing with this, you're going to get more uniform of taste. You're also less likely to get any other oils mixed into there, and it's much more likely it's going to be a pure extra virgin olive oil. The next thing after that would be organic. Organic does make it much more expensive. Organic, generally in this context, it's going to mean that the pesticides that they do use are going to be more organic. They're going to be more natural. They're not going to use artificial pesticides, and there tends to be less of them. So there's just going to be more health benefits in that regard, or at least less toxins in this compared to if it's not organic. And lastly is actually a bit of a myth, and it's the color. So I know naturally you would think that the richer the color, the deeper the color of the oil, you would think is the better quality, but apparently this actually doesn't matter. And the richness of the color of the oil is just dependent on the type of olives that they use and when those olives were picked. It's not necessarily to do with the quality of the oil. Okay, so let's say you've got a nice olive oil, but you want to know whether it's actually any good, because obviously the marketing is one thing, but whether it's actually true is another, as we learned at the beginning of this video. There's two ways in which you can really easily test this. The first one is just to taste it, and particularly the more olive oil you taste, the more you're going to become more sensitive to what is good and what is maybe not so good. So what are you looking for? The main things you're looking for is a fresh, grassy type of taste, and it should have a spice that hits you at the back of the throat. Now the next thing you can do to test it is to put a little bit on the bottom of a cup and then put it in the fridge. Leave it overnight, and in the morning it should have increased its viscosity, and ideally you shouldn't really be able to pour it. This was a difference that I found between this Aldi one and this one here that I got from Amazon. This one overnight maintained its viscosity, so it didn't actually solidify in any way at all, whereas this one actually did become more viscous and I wasn't able to pour it. So that's definitely a very good sign. So there are two easy ways you can just test it, just to see whether there's a good chance that you've actually got a good olive oil. Now, lastly, what can olive oil be used for? Well, I use this over my salads. You can really put it over so much stuff because it's a mild-ish type of taste, and it just adds moisture. Salad is brilliant. But you can also cook with it. It is apparently a myth that you can't cook with it just because the smoke point is a little bit lower than other oils. However, I decided not to cook with it just because it is so expensive. However, I would cook with this one, but I do now tend to cook more with avocado oil because it's a bit cheaper, but it's still quite good for you. Apparently this smoke point isn't necessarily associated with a degrading quality when you're cooking it. So if you want to, you can cook with it, and it's certainly much better to cook with this than to cook with any seed oils, just because seed oils are much higher in omega-6. They don't have as many of the health benefits, and a lot of them they do go through quite a horrendous processing, particularly if it's not extra virgin and cold pressed. But this one is, instead of being high in omega-6, it is high in omega-9, which is oleic acid, which has been associated with many health benefits, particularly when it comes to aging. Quite interesting. So if you want to learn more about the benefits of extra virgin olive oil, I go through this in more detail in a video that will pop up just here in a second, where I go through the top 4 longevity foods for slowing your aging. And so obviously this is going to be one of them. You can also find out what the other ones are as well. But just before that pops up, don't forget that you can get 10% off Vivo barefoot shoes, minimalist shoes that I wear every single day. You can get £10 off your first bag of coffee from XL Coffee, which is an organic, super healthy coffee. 10% off Athanaze, a superfood specifically formulated for men, and 15% off Fussy, which is a natural deodorant that doesn't contain any of the harmful chemicals. I will see you either on that video or my next. Don't forget to subscribe. See you next time. Thanks for watching.